Welcome to This, That, and the Third. Tonight, we're diving into the stories, challenges, and opportunities shaping the world of entrepreneurship. So, we'll be tackling a timely and essential topic: how current government policies and actions are influencing entrepreneurs like our esteemed guest. So, we'll hear firsthand from business owners about the impact on their ventures and their hopes for the future. So, Shannon, what's your
Hmm.
take on this topic? How do you feel? What you feeling?
I feel like it's a scary time, especially for entrepreneurship, just because there's so many unknowns. We're dealing with a administration that is not a student of consistency and planning and slow movement. They're very, shock and awe, and you can't really plan from a business standpoint from that place. Most business owners are strategic planners. They kind of think about the future. They have some foundations that they rely on, and that's just not the kind of environment that we're in right now. So it's a scary time. Scary
Most
time.
definitely.
Hmm.
I agree with you 110%. And
Yeah.
whether you're an entrepreneur, if you're aspiring to be one, or if you're just curious about the intersection of business and policy, you're in for what I feel is going to be a very fascinating
I
conversation.
think so too. I think so
Right?
too.
Right.
Yes.
So before we get started, we do want to give our esteemed guests an opportunity to introduce themselves. So as always, ladies are first. Kiki, what you got?
Mhm.
So my name is Kiki Cyrus. I am owner of Kiki's Chicken and Waffles. We have been in business 13 years. We have three locations, one off of Two Notch and Park Lane, one off of Bow Parkway, and then we have our newest location off of Rivers Avenue in North Charleston. We also have a food truck, and we also have our hands in other businesses around the Columbia area. So that's it about
Good
me.
stuff. And if you haven't been to Kiki's Chicken and Waffles yet, you're missing out. I don't know many people who haven't been there yet, but
Yeah.
if
Has.
you're one of those select few who haven't, make sure you take my girl out.
And look, me and DoorDash love Kiki's. Okay.
all of us love Kiki's. Um, uh, Good evening. I'm Christopher O'Berry. Um, I'm an entrepreneur in the area. I own a company called Solutions and Lending. We specialize in finance. We're able to help small business owners, medium and large business owners acquire real estate, corporate financing, all the vehicles they need to sustain themselves and grow their operations. We've been in business for about 13 years now, and we're proud to say we've helped a lot of families in the Columbia area achieve some of their goals. So we definitely are glad to be a part of the conversation with the likes of Shannon, Hook, and Kiki. I'm great friends with her husband, Ty. So definitely, I'm glad to be here.
Right, absolutely, and we're certainly glad to have you guys. And again, I think this is going to be a very interesting and much needed conversation. So without further ado, man, we'll go ahead and get started. And feel free to jump in anywhere you guys feel free. So the first question I do have for you: how have recent policy changes impacted your business operations or growth plans?
I guess I can go first. For us, we did open our third location last year, August, September. So as every business owner, you try to look for ways where you can grow. So open other locations, or expand to catering or doing more catering. And so with the new regulations or whatnot, it's scary, like Shannon said, because you're unaware of costs for construction and buying new
Mm-hmm.
equipment and food costs. And one thing we pride ourselves on is we try to keep our prices low, so we don't price ourselves out of the
Mhm.
community. um just certain areas that we're in, people want a deal. We all want deals, right? When you purchasing food. So it is tough. And right now it's just like, okay, let's sit still for a while. Let's work what we have until these things blow over and things change.
Mm-hmm.
I second that in a lot of ways because uncertainty is never a good thing in any sort of uh, measure that takes planning. I come from a generation where it was measure twice and cut once. So we always tried to be, uh, you know, no one wanted to be wasteful. I mean, that's where you arrive at the success that you want to be. Um, so what I'm seeing on my side of the gate is similar to what Kiki's seeing. You got rising costs and commodities. I talked to some GCs, and a wood package for a $156,000 house last month was one number. It might have been 34,000. This month is probably up about 10 grand. And those changes happen abruptly within the course of a week or two. So you have people in the middle of projects. At least they had put pen to paper and had started the planning phase of these things, and then all of a sudden you have this upheaval in prices that take them out of the sometimes all the way off the table. They're not even feasible anymore. So it's a tumultuous environment. We're gonna move through it. I think, like for me as an entrepreneur, understanding the business cycle, no matter what, we have to understand that like you can advertise and you can pump money in and expand at the time that contractions are going on. And a lot of us as African American entrepreneurs forget that, and we don't do that, and then we don't survive. I remember 2007, which was more of a it was an event that was totally out of the blue. It was foreign. It was never even heard of. What's occurring with us now? I mean, definitely for our generation. I mean, how the mortgage-backed securities tanked and how the economy went with it. And just to sum up what I'm saying, this particular situation is the second time around. Economists know it's going to occur. We're all starting to feel the tension, and we're feeling the days of it. There is going to be another probably correction with the market because, as I said earlier, you're going to go from speculation to not knowing. It takes, an extra 2 weeks to get that window, or to get that door, or to get whatever you need to finish that project. And then that's going to have to calculate into our psyche on how we move forward. But
no, absolutely. And one thing that I think you both pretty much touched on is we're all feeling it. But I mean, as far as being business owners, like, with your consumers, like you said, everybody wants a deal. Like everybody wants to get as much as possible while simultaneously paying the bare minimum that they should, right? But you want to meet those needs, but at the same time, I think a lot of people need to realize you're in a business to make money. You know what I mean? So you can't.
Yeah.
You have to find that, I guess, that balance between being as economical as possible towards your clientele, but at the same time, you can't just give everything away. You know what I mean?
You cannot. I am an entrepreneur too in my own right, and what I found, like with service industry, is that people want something for nothing, and I get that that's coming from a place of their own uncertainty in their business. So I'm an accountant. I do bookkeeping, taxes. So I offer a service, but they also want to make sure that those costs are low because they don't know if their revenue is going to be the same next year. They don't want to maybe contract with me for services on a monthly basis. They only want to do something quarterly, or maybe like a yearly review, something like that. And that's all just all uncertainty. So issue trickles down to other entrepreneurs because the service that you may have offered that you may be able to get a contract for now, everyone's up in arms, everyone's unsure, and that it's a cycle and it impacts everyone.
I want to just go back to the bigger picture that we're dealing with. We are a service-based economy. I'm talking from a macro level and a micro level. Like when you look in the African American community, Ms. Cyrus, she offers a service-based business, and just like Shannon does. And what we are byproduct of that, none of us produce any commodities, hence the era that we're living in with these tariffs and other issues that are going on. A lot of us don't remember Ron Brown, but he tried to change that narrative as a Secretary of Commerce way back during the Clinton era. But, if you Google Ron Brown, you'll see what occurred with him. But the thing about it is, because we don't control commodities, we are in a perilous situation. Not to give any credence to the administration we're dealing with, because I look at issues. I don't really look at, parties anymore. We beyond that. But like what I'm seeing is that there is a change in environment that as entrepreneurs we got to recognize, and we have to start to change our modus operandi, like how we handle business on a day-to-day basis. Kiki just expanded, and she expanded during an era where a lot of businesses wouldn't have expanded. You open a location in Charleston, you understand that there's a core expense and then there's volume that can get you beyond that number. And a lot of entrepreneurs that are budding or starting off, they don't have that a lot. That's why I'm glad y'all did this, because you have people out there that are novice, and then you got people out there that are very seasoned. And we don't have the synergy or the exchange of information that's necessary in order to bring more of us along so we can have a community, so we can have lobbyists that can help us keep some of these laws in line or rules in line so we can prosper. When I look at black banks in America, there's only 8 real black banks in America. And a lot of us aren't even members of those banks, but we might be a member of a credit union that never lent us a dime. Or if they did, it was under suspect terms. So it's all about like the miseducation of the Negro, like Carter G. Woodson, like recalibrating our understanding and our initiatives and, within our own spheres of influence. And understand this is a protracted thing. It has not stopped being a protracted struggle, and it will be for us. And we have to understand our strength is ourselves around us. Because as one thing we learned, like during Red Summer and all the other upheavals that occurred, Wilmington, North Carolina, Tulsa, Oklahoma, we learned that our communities, when they bond together, like they really were resilient economically. And I think this is going to be another chance for us to prove that theory true. But I think at the same time, in this environment, because of this computer in our hand, we'll be able to reach bigger markets. Like, we always look at ourselves as a minority, and we're not. For most entrepreneurs, and I'm speaking for the most part, we resemble physically the majority of the cultures probably on the planet, but we still would take on the term minority gladly, because it comes with incentives, and it also comes with a mindset, and then you move yourself out of the bigger economy. And I think we're going to have to start looking at that phenomenon and understand that 65% of the working class people on the planet going to live in sub-Saharan Africa during our lifetime. It's a different emerging model. And that's the point I just wanted to bring up.
Right. Absolutely. And I think one thing that each of you touched on really, especially with this administration and this economy, is uncertainty. It's really, not knowing, you know what I mean? So obviously I know that takes a lot of preparation on your end. So I totally get it. Now, I also want to ask you guys, so are there like any specific regulations or initiatives that have been particularly helpful
from this new administration?
Right.
Oh,
I would say no. I mean, I really haven't seen or heard anything.
Say not yet.
Not yet. But I would want to share. I do want to share to some entrepreneurs that may be listening that so Dominion Energy has this initiative where they pay $2,500 towards your electricity bill. So that helps. It's not a lot compared to some people who has electricity bill of $5,000 or $7,000 each month, but it does help so that you can see more of a cash flow.
You can reallocate that. Period. That's a good bit of money to reallocate.
Yeah, it is. And so initiatives like that helps out with small business. So if you have a small business and you have a brick and mortar, check that out. It's on Dominion Energy small business website. I think they only do it once a year or something like that, but it's a good initiative. But with what's going on, I don't think they have done anything for businesses right now. I'm looking, I'm hoping, but because we need it. And you would think the president would think about small business, being that he has a business, but I guess he doesn't consider his business as a small business anymore.
He's a billionaire.
So he really is not looking at the small business. And he needs to understand that small businesses are the backbone of the economy, and we're important.
It's funny that you say that, because I think with his last administration, it was all about small business, right? That was where he would tout that kind of talking point, and all of speeches, and now I haven't heard him mention a small business since. And I feel like everything that he's doing with the terrorists, and not just saying terrorists, because right, there's some room for there to be some equalization with terrorists, and some room for there to be negotiations and things to be worked on. But I think the vast, enormous amount of terrorists at one time, where you can't really plan for that. So if you're a vendor and you get stuff from China, then you get some stuff from Europe, you don't have any way to change your plan so you don't get squeezed by the tariffs, because everyone in every market is subject to them. And I think that's the difference, and that directly impacts a small business who was already paying a high amount for a good that is just a component of their total package, right? They have no way to kind of negotiate themselves out of being negatively impacted by the tariff.
Right. And Chris, what about you? Same question. Are there any specific regulations or initiatives that have been helpful to you, or not really?
Not really. I mean, you don't see. I think the benefit as a community that people perceive was direct compensation, some sort of incentive, check, credit.
That
People have a short memory, and they only operate off stimuli a lot of times, and that's just unfortunate. It's characteristic of humanity. So I mean, and that was a situation back then that brought on a sense of euphoria. I'll give you an instance. I do a lot of business funding. Okay, so you got a lot of brothers that got into hot shot, and because it was a low hanging fruit, you could get a dually with a fifth wheel, and you can go from earning maybe $6,000 a month to 20 consistent hot shotting. So now we're in an era where there aren't as much things coming in port wise, or there's a lot more delays, and only the institutional companies, the larger companies, are able to get some of the contracts that are coming through. So we're going into this era of nepotism, aka white supremacy, aka hire my own people because I govern the tasks, and then I'll hire y'all if somebody scream and kick loud enough.
Right.
And we got to be mindful that the threat has always been the same, unfortunately. And even when it's not a real threat, it's just perception. So, after chattel slavery, we were the ones that were the master carpenters and the master ironsmiths, because we actually did the work. We did the work. So, the idea of having a community and identifying the things that we do well and carried us through, and getting back to those things is going to be quintessential for us to survive. And I mean like trades. Okay. So we can take a negative and make it a positive. I'm going to tell you this because I paid on a property. I was trying to fix a flip. I paid a electrician twice, and they happened to be Latino electricians, and both of them got missing. And it was all of the hula. They already heard about it. It's serious to them, very much. May not affect us. But when you have a life and everything is well evolved around you, loved ones to provide for and things like that, and someone is talking about extracting you out of that house, and everything's going to crumble on them, I mean, that would be a scary situation for people. So, and I think just to bring it to a real thing, because there are individuals in our greater community that are going through them very same patterns of thought right now, unfortunately. And based on the trajectory of this administration, the inevitable may occur, the way they're doing the things that they're doing. But my point is
citizens as well, not just immigrants, but citizens as well being, removed from their homes the way it looks.
Who's going to pick the peaches? Who's going to do the things that the American worker just won't do, hasn't done for eons? I mean, this country is built on immigration. And, prior to FDR, we were isolationists, like Trump trying to take us back to. And it doesn't work, because that's what led to World War II. Like, while we are trying to be an isolationist, the whole world's going to be evolving. And it's just a thing like China said, y'all 15% of what we produce. I mean, if y'all take that away from us, we gonna find it someplace else. So y'all can isolate yourselves and y'all can create this fallacy of grandeur, but at the same time, we're gonna supply the world. And eventually y'all gonna have to come back and see us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that game. And we're sitting here trying to live in that bubble and understand the best way for us to provide for our families, to create generational wealth, and not yet piercing the bubble and making those contacts, like I said, and different business venues. Because most of us that are successful in what we do, it's not one stream of income. If I ask any of these other entrepreneurs, they're going to probably say that they have 3 streams of income that they can look for profit from. And I know Kiki. So it's like, that is our edge right now. And that's what we really need to be focusing on as a community. Multiple streams.
Yeah, right.
I
And
like
this,
that you mentioned that we are we need the thrill right now. We need the thing right now. Like people got really excited about potentially getting another $5,000 stimulus check, I think was being floated out there. But what I guess my thing is like, what happened to us? Because there was a point in time where, like when we did the bus boycott, that occurred for months, and people were willing to sacrifice and do away with things to make sure that the bigger good was served. So we really didn't care about, I don't feel like we cared about instant gratification then. It was more about the community. And I guess what do you think has shifted? I know that's not really about entrepreneurship, but I think that's a key point, because in order for us to build up our community where we can survive as entrepreneurs, we have to figure out, how do we get here?
I mean, I think people are too, you mentioned like people taking action way back when. People nowadays, to be completely transparent, they're too self-absorbed. Like they're worried more about, you know, themselves and their bottom line. They're not worried about their neighbor or how they can. This would be the ideal time for us to stand behind our own and support all the Black businesses out there, the Black business owners. This is when we can truly show them that how just impactful and how powerful our dollar is. You know what I mean? But now, will we do that? I mean, that remains to be seen. But I guess we'll, if things keep going the way they're going, we'll find out sooner rather than later. And
We're
going to Kiki's.
I know.
And I want to jump in and say, you know, when we had, what was it, the blackout? Was it? Yeah. I can't remember the name, but I mean, the community definitely showed out. They showed out that day, and that showed me that we can do it more than just for one day. Absolutely. You know, like, I mean, they really did show out for real. So I think, you know, boycotting the Target and all that, I think
I ain't lying, Kiki. That's hurting my soul now. I'd be like, oh, let me do it my red card.
Don't you go in Target. Don't let me get a picture of you in Target.
I have not
been in there. I ain't even gonna return nothing, because I don't want nobody taking no picture of me talking about watching.
But you know what? It's very important that you bring that up. Like, having a collective consciousness about our economic plight is a part of the whole thing. I mean, we've been doused with individualism since we've been in like elementary. Like, you know, be you. Like, almost everything around us was telling us that we had our own individual initiative, you're special sort of thing, which is true. But you're special in the body of a community.
Right.
And, you know, we went through a lot of things that really didn't serve our best interests, like the United Negro College Fund. Like I remember sitting down with my mom, God bless her soul, and watching that and like wanting to be that guy that got picked, that Calvin that got picked and got a scholarship and was able to go to this university. And when we look back on it in time, you know, there was a book written about transcending the talented 10th, and it was a very good read. And we do have a group of people in this country that have made it by assimilating and achieving and proving themselves. We have a bigger group in this country that have always had a third world economy, that had a what we call black market economy, or did something outside of being franchised in order to get things done. So our norm, our reality has always been this thing of survival, this thing of understanding impact and then responding to it. So Yeah, you're trying to say. I apologize. So it has always been that thing. So, realistically, with us, as we evolve, we need to make sure we're inclusive as with the people around us.
Mm-hmm.
We have barriers, we have things that hang us up. Um, those are some of the things we can do individually, but on a macro level, we got to have better policy. We got to have a deeper understanding of the little things and how they trickle back down and how it go back up. A lot of us don't even care. We think it's going to affect them and not us, and we're going to be all right.
Don't. You're right, because I'm a part of the getting back on target. Because let me tell you how difficult it is not to go.
She mad about that Target thing.
I'm just saying, but I'm on the Target group on Facebook, and they were literally arguing in there about why are you shopping at Target, why are you not? And a lot of people were just like, it don't affect us. You still buying from this place and that place, and and it's like, well. It hurt my heart because what you're saying is correct. It's right. Everyone was about themselves, how it impacted themselves and what it did for them. And they got to go there to get the skirt that they want and the shoes that they want.
Mm-hmm.
And no one was addressing the fact that, or accepting or open to the conversation about it being about our community and not just, whether or not you got those pair of sandals. Do you really need them? And I just I actually just deleted the group because I was like, I'm standing firm in my commitment to my community. And I just don't want to be a part or see the stuff pop up where other people who look like me just are deciding they're just absolutely not going to do it.
Right.
No matter what.
Honest, here in the Williams household, we used to live and die by Target. but and it's funny because we haven't, since all this began, we haven't stepped foot in Target at all, right? And my daughter, she wanted.
I don't even want to use the stuff I bought from Target.
She wanted a pair of sweatpants, and they had them in Target, and she was like trying to convince us to go, and we were trying to explain to her why we aren't going and stuff like that. And then she found a pair on Amazon, and they were like $15 more expensive. And she was like, see, they're even more expensive. But, I bit the bullet and I paid that additional $15. You know what I'm saying? Because I wanted to show her that we're standing firm in what we believe. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's cliche, but like they say, if you don't stand for something, you fall for anything. So we have to stand firm in those beliefs. And like Kiki said, to your point, that blackout was great. That was one day, but again, we saw just how impactful that one day can be. So if we can go that one singular day, if we properly plan ahead, we can boycott long term if we need to. But this is the ideal time that we can show this country just how powerful the black dollar is.
Mm-hmm. That's a real important point. I want to interject this.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think like one thing that we have not had and that we need as a group of people. We need accountability on a whole nother level to ourselves as a unit. When I studied to be a paralegal or whatever, I remember reading about the origin of law, and it fascinated me so much that the church was involved in the early organization of corporations, people incorporating, groups of individuals coming together, taking interest in an idea or plan in order to pool money and things in order to get things done. So if someone slighted someone, the church took interest in it because they helped organize it. Therefore, the bond market was created on phenomena like that. You had a bond to that group of people that you needed to pay. You need to show up and do work for them until you paid it off. And then those instruments were traded at tea shops. And then we get our modern day bond market that we, all of us get a mortgage and we're bound to pay that note for 30 years. And we got all these bonds floating around, and man's activity are tied to these futures, these commodities. My point in saying that is that a dollar bill is fiat, and we're understanding this in a different way. When I say fiat, it's the ability for men to organize effort around a given thing. When you have money in the bank, you have labor surplus. We have to understand these concepts. Like when you're a country, you look at your gross GDP, you look at people, you look at heavy equipment, and you look at cash currency. Mm-hmm. When we look at ourselves as entrepreneurs, we have to start looking at ourselves in a certain way. Kiki mentioned she had a food truck. That is a commodity. It's a commodity. it has an equitable number on it, but it also has a profit stream attached to it. Equipment is something that we have not delved in heavily, and we need to as a culture of people. When you look at, I'm just gonna say this real quick so I can wrap up. When you look at entrepreneurship, like I was talking to a brother in Atlanta yesterday, and you talk about numbers on people that deal with finance, like only 4% of us are out there helping people in the African American community to gain access to products they may know nothing about. That is huge. I mean, we're 30 million people, and we got 8 banks. We lost 6 or 7 last year. I'm not sure. But my point is, it's so disproportionate. I mean, we live in America. There's 80 million people in Brazil. Some of us don't know a Brazilian actor, ain't seen a Brazilian commercial. None of that. But these people exist with us, look like us, are in the same hemisphere as us. We have no, you know what I mean? So
no connections to them.
There are systematic and there are things that are going on that we have to make sure we have a hand in correcting in order for our progeny to have a better future, not just us to have sustainable lives.
Right, right. And that's a great point. It's not just about what we're like to hear now. It's about when we're dead and gone, you know, what do we leave? What legacy are we leaving those, you know, our loved ones that are going to be left behind? So I totally get it. Now, I do want to ask, and I'm curious to know your thoughts on this, though. Like, what are your thoughts on the administration's approach to taxation and trade policies?
I don't know. That's a tough one. I don't know. Come back to me on that one.
Yeah, I think, you know, just back to the top, the entirety of our discussion today. The trade policies, the abrupt changes in the Trump administration, that Shannon spoke about, it was something that was a byproduct of a Obama backlash. It was the byproduct of people seeing the heights and the things that they never thought that they would see in their lifetime start to happen time and time again.
I appreciate you using the word backlash, not of his doing, not of his making, but of the backlash from him.
No. It was a sentiment. It was a sentiment from a majority culture to a subset in a environment to say that not you had gotten out of hand, but these things were occurring at our leave. Like, we want to change it, and we want to change it. And a lot of places are realizing that we thought, based on our own enthusiasm, that America was ready to be led by African-American female, because we have it going in our houses all the time. It's a natural thing, and it's a productive thing, and it would have worked well. But was your hardened golf 4 times a week, run a company with 90 employees, you know, going to that middle range guy that has that other guy sitting on him, gatekeeper, would they then allow for these things to come to fruition? And it's you know, it's electoral politic thing. It may be other things that transpire. The point is that, you know, publicity a lot of times moves people, and the lack thereof does the same thing. And we end up putting our eggs in a basket, hoping for an outcome that didn't occur. That was a mental blow to people. Now we're walking through the actual the fire that is starting, because we haven't gotten into the heat of it yet. And
no, we just started. It ain't even been 6 months. It's only 4.
We will emerge on the other end, and you know, we may be charred and scarred and burnt and battered. You know, that's why you have to collect your stones now. That's why it's about being proactive. That's why it's about looking at how opportunities are changing around the world and tying in. If we stay fixated and rigid, a lot more of us will lose than will win. Some people have great business ideas and ventures that are bedrock. People have to eat, and they love chicken and waffles because it's good. So we're gonna keep coming to see you.
It's that fried chicken, okay?
Yeah, exactly. So you have, and that's what we want to look at. We want to, as African American entrepreneurs, look at, is it the time now to open a a plumbing outfit, a plumbing company? Is it the time now to open an electrical company? Because like some people can bankroll these things and don't realize it. They don't. You can make that margin. You can answer that service call. You can find the traffic on the internet where that provides these opportunities. Is it time now for you to have a janitorial company, something that is a recession-proof moneymaker?
But
You
what you're
use
getting at, the things you're saying are trades, things that are built
it.
around a trade and not
Right.
a service.
I'm gonna say this right, and I'm gonna back away. Right, there were two themes in African American history that are empirical, and this is something that can be. There were two themes. There were Booker T. Washington, which we don't see his name a lot anymore. Booker T. was educational self-reliance. Like, we are going to go back to the ground. We're going to dig, plant. We're going to have trades. We're going to be brick masons, carpenters. We'll know ironwork. That was his legacy. And then you had W.E.B. Du Bois, right? And his was more of a talented concept. Like, we're going to show that we are the best and the brightest. We're going to end up in these institutions of a higher learning, and we're going to arrive at a better place and be able to pull our own up behind us. And then we get into this era and we see a Kanye West that makes $1 billion and the switch comes on. And then he loses so much and he has to reinvent himself to get back. He has to do it a different way. We see the Whitneys, we see the Angies, we see Prince, we see Mike, we see the story time and time again play out. And then we look at ourselves when we sit next to Tavis Smiley or Arsenio, and then we wonder, like, how did all of us get here? It was like one by one. You know what I'm saying? It was one by one because they represented a ideology that might not have been cool. If you look at on Harvard's website today, one of the things that they said was, about how no government should be able to dictate what institutions in any government or any country decide who can teach what or whatever. But by them pulling so much $2 billion away from that school, the school got two things to do. It either can survive and do exactly what they say, which censor and basically turn the lights off on history, until there's a clear winner again, or they can go ahead and keep teaching the way they're teaching and get private money to keep them afloat. They're not going to choose to do that. So we're in an era.
That school, particularly, they have a $53 billion endowment. So they are in a different position than if you were just talking about like maybe one of the other Ivy League schools or a state-funded school or something like that. They're in a completely different position. I think they're able to take a stand because of that endowment.
Correct. And that's what I want to bring up. Everyone does not have a shoulder to lean on. So, even as an entrepreneur, like, there is a business cycle out here. When you get into this, even in the best of climates, you're going to, as an entrepreneur, experience a business cycle. You're going to have growth, and Kiki knows, like, you're going to have growth. Then when you get to a certain point of growth, your business going to catch up with your growth. And either you're going to decide to advertise and do better, or expand to more locations to do better, or that plateau is going to turn into a recession. It's going to turn into contraction. You might have to cut staff. You might have to do smart things. You might have to, you're going to have to do something. But the best of corporations all have one thing in common. They have the ability to borrow through those environments, or they have assets laying around that they can liquidate and get through those environments. My thing is, on a planning thing, what I don't see a lot of is, like, when we come into this, we want to make sure that we have an exit strategy. Sometimes you can't be in the market. Like, to my brothers out there that trade, best that sometimes the best time is on the sideline because you've been trained to that point. Some environments you can't run the risk, and some people will make it. Maybe they have wherewithal, they got enough money to lose that they can get to a win. But as a thing, we have to come up with modus operandi or plans for us to survive. And I think that's what a dialogue in the coming years is going to shift. And I think that'll bring us to cohesion and the thing about maybe, shopping Black more, being more intentional about the community. Yeah.
I know on the taxation side, the thing that worries me is the policies where you're taking from our norms, things like Medicaid, Medicare, and reshifting the wealth to the 1%, meaning you're taking away these core services and things that we paid for through our payroll dollars. We paid for these services, and then saying that we have fraud, waste, and abuse. So now those benefits need to be cut, but now you're shifting the pot of money over to the 1% who don't need it. Right. I just watched a thing about in Texas, them doing privatizing charter schools. Right. You're giving money to charter schools and taking away from the public schools with no guarantee that people will be able to get enrolled. Right. You have access to enrollment, but not guaranteed. We all know access doesn't mean that you get in. But the people, they were saying, who are already in the charter schools or the private schools, opportunity to get the vouchers, right? And we already know that the people already there are the millionaires and billionaires who could already afford to send their children.
Right.
So you're taking away from the public schools, these people who need services, where public schools are closing, the classrooms are overcrowded, and taking away those dollars from those schools, then they make it available to people who already have their children in these private institutions or in these charter and private schools. So it is a reshifting of wealth.
Right.
I have an issue with that as far as when you talk about taxation and taking my dollars that I pay into the tax system and giving it to people who don't need it. I have a sincere problem with that.
There's a clear line being drawn, like a line of demarcation, and you know, whether you are on one side or another depends on how much you made the previous year. And it's a thing about it, you know, there are going to be a lot of us that are very influential that's going to slip to the other side because of our ability to spread or be proactive and plan loss in order through assets. And one of the things I admire, I do a lot of deals in Missouri and with people around the country, and insights are different. And one of the things that I admire was, you know, the way they look at opportunity costs and tax strategy and things like that when they do a real estate deal with me. So they help me. I used to do the mechanics. I used to be like the guy under the hood, you know, you're doing the deal. And I would meet people that were doing multiple deals or whatever. Their reason and rationale was a little bit different from what I was doing. And I brought that up to say that there are some of us that will slip through the cracks that'll be very influential. The community has to be more of a grassroots thing. The taxation and the changes in policy that are taking place are doing exactly what taxation is designed to do: create a certain environment, a certain kind of behavior that pushes a certain agenda. And their agenda right now is not really endorsing and developing entrepreneurship. The private sector is still engaged. The bond market is at a place where, yeah, you can do a lot in the real estate sector now because of what happened with stocks. But there's not a lot of people poised to take advantage of the time. There are institutions that are making it very difficult for people to ever stop renting intentionally.
Yes.
They're building to rent. We had all these new programs to pop up within the last year. In America, in the future, for our kids, they're going to be owners and they're going to be renters. And it'll be a phenom because right now you see they're trying to put a moratorium on Fannie and Freddie right now.
Well, we just saw that in Fairfield County. They've actually built homes for teachers to support teachers moving to the community because there's a shortage, but they're all properties. And then I thought to myself, why would they make them available for like low income purchases? But they made them all rental communities
because they're very profitable.
Very profitable.
The big hedge funds have understood that the 30-year yield on that bond, what it represents. Why buy it from a secondary guy on a market called Wall Street when we can create our own stream of income with the same sort of move? So they moved beyond dealing with Wall Street the way they did. You know, the biggest fear right now in the mortgage-backed security market is that the Chinese that hold a lot of mortgage-backed securities will start dumping them and intentionally devalue the bonds on the global market. So, you got a lot of things. It is a different time. It's a time of uncertainty, but it's a time that opportunity is going to be made. Like, we got to keep in mind and not be petrified by fear. We had a time before, where our people survived and then thrived as a result.
Mm-hmm.
We have to draw back on that energy and that insight and that design, and then be very intentional when we get up and put our shoes on in the morning about what we will move out our houses prospectively and do that not only endow ourselves, but then others around us. Mm-hmm. And I think, the quicker we realize that, and then the quicker we get leadership. We have brothers out there that, I talked to Todd a lot with the Congressional Black Caucus, and I'm speaking about the community, not to knock any other community, because I deal with all kind of people, and I love it. And I think that's one of the spices of life. But when it comes time for preservation, I know that our community has historical things that occurred that make us different, that make our plight different, that make our outcome different. So need to be dealt with specifically. So that's why I speak the way I speak. But it's like we have an abundance of energy that we never tapped into, i.e.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We hadn't had true leadership since probably the Malcolm era.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we tried Jesse, then Jesse Jr. and then everybody.
Don't say Jesse name like that. Don't you say Jesse name like that now. You put some respect on his name now.
But is it by design? I like Al, but Al might be a canary. I don't know, but
I don't lost all that weight.
He has what was it, Zempic before everybody else. I mean, he got money. He can do that. But my thing is a credibility thing, because just like what we learned from Obama and versus Trump, America had a standing across the world, no matter what anyone can say in the heralds of history. During the Obama administration, you could be American and probably be any place on the planet and be all right.
Be all right.
Be all right. You know what I mean?
All right, yeah.
Be all right. Okay, we going into a different era now. When we travel, you got to keep your head on swivel.
Look, let's talk about that, because I haven't booked a trip to go nowhere.
You might be in Canada.
I don't even want to go. I'm afraid.
You American, okay?
Yes.
Yeah, you can't go anywhere without being afraid to do something.
But Jamal was talking about that we just haven't developed system infrastructures. For the rest of the world, they have. We're not investing in ourselves, and not even just talking about us as a nation. Us as a community, we're not building systems and infrastructures where we can come together and support each other. So even the mere thought of us working together as a community is what's the blueprint? Where do you start?
I want to address that. That because this is something that we have a group that we do a little thinking or whatever, but from a historical standpoint, the thing is this: if you look at every other culture of people minus us, I think there's a big emphasis on volunteering. When you look at the Jewish, they volunteer. If your house needed to be painted hook and it was a Saturday and you put it on the calendar and 4 or 5 of us can get there and save you $3,000 for painting outside, pressure wash your paint, it built equity for you. Mm-hmm. But it took us an hour because it was 20 of us. When you look at the Muslim community, they have 5 pillars of 5 pillars of the community. I don't mean to offend anyone, but I think I'm accurate with that. One of them is zakat, and zakat is like charity. You can't even be a Muslim unless you understand where you're gonna just give, not expect no money back. You're gonna wash your sister, take her to the laundromat, help her fold her clothes. That is a part of your daily thing. When you look at the African American community, I cannot. If I put 10 of my friends together, couldn't come up with 10 hours of community service in the last month, let alone to a Black man that couldn't pay him.
Nope.
So there's no equity being built in the community by the hands of the people that are capable of building equity by saving you $1.
Because I can't stand you paying your nephews to do stuff. Don't pay them.
Yeah, right. Well, I paid them, but they do some money the way they should. But my thing is, what I'm saying is, we have to create designs and efforts that change the trajectory of what we're trying to do. If it is a day that everyone shows up at a family member's house in a 365-day calendar to do something, whether it's one of the elderly person to do the yard, to do the house, to do everything. Everybody came. We can cook out, put some meat on the grill, but do that. Help them people go through all their mail and figure out who trying to steal their house from them.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And don't call me when it happened and we're trying to figure out a title issue.
GoFundMe. Right.
Yeah, it's like, yo,
Yeah, no more rent parties, no more, somebody
Yeah.
passed away and we need to help the family. We won't do that no more.
Let's
Right.
be proactive.
Right.
Because if we start helping each other when it should be a 40 thing, like or a 30 thing, 30 to 40. I don't know. We should make it a thing, like Milana Karinga did with Kwanzaa. But we have to have things that actually do have byproducts for us that are progressive and make us better as a community. But if I came and helped you, I think like right now, my sister, I'm coming to put your cameras up so you don't have to pay a tech. But if we started there, which means that we know trades. If it's time for, Kiki, you bought a house, and if it's time for to do the rehab, if everyone, in spite of the level of success you have, if everyone said, you know what, Saturday, if you put it on the calendar, I can come and spend a day just doing the labor. I don't care if you get richer. I want you to get richer. Because when you get richer, you get to a point where you can provide more jobs. Because I know your payroll is immense. I applaud you. That's a headache. I'm just okay. But I love our people. And that's the thing about when heavy is the crown, of those of us that get to that point. A Mike, a Prince, Prince telling Ice Cube, don't sign with Priority again. Do your own thing. And then Ice Cube emerging to be the entrepreneur he is. People don't know the stories. We don't know the Paul Robesons that were like Black Hollywood before there was a Hollywood, Paul Robeson and how he got blacklisted like Arsenio Hall did. We don't know the history. We don't see the play. And a lot of times because we don't study it or investigate the play, we don't have countermeasures.
I think we see it, but we don't recognize it for what it is.
When you don't develop countermeasures, then that means that you're not.
Somebody was just talking to me today about how they killed Prince, right? But we see it, we know it, but we don't attack it and recognize it for what it is. We'll just talk about it as if or just a story, and not really it's for us to change how we operate within. So if someone like Prince comes up again, they won't have to face the chance of being blacklisted, blackballed, or actually murdered or killed. We don't do anything about it. It just becomes story and folklore. No question. The biggest front in that right now for entrepreneurs, and this is a truly entrepreneur subject, the biggest front for us is distribution. It always has been. So Mike he left Tony Mottola, Sony, to do a distribution company. Whitney might have wanted to control her distribution. She wanted a masters. Angie, if you look at the Afro beats, and this is what I want us to understand. That's why I mentioned earlier about the emerging population. When you got 60% of the working class people on the planet, you can Google it and see, are going to be in sub-Saharan Africa. The age bracket. The United States and the UK are aging. The baby boomers were the most successful generation. They are turning 65 at a rate of 10,000 a day right now. That's why you see so many long-term care companies popping up and being highly successful. The taxation now, like Hook was saying, the taxation is the majority of us. I'm sorry, the minority paying for the majority. The majority of the people in the United States of America are going to be greater than 65. Do they pay taxes? No. They're asking for a check from the government. Yeah. And they're retiring where they want to. And most of them in baby boomers, they got multiple houses. They work 30 years on one job. None of us are gonna work 30 years on one job. If even the people out there in the W-2 world, they got Social Security, they got pension, probably retired twice. That was the baby boomers. Our generation won't look like that.
Nah.
Yeah. It would be like the little old lady in Walmart. I was in New Orleans for 3 days, and I'm eating breakfast, and the lady was waiting. She was so cute. Yes, she's older lady with gray hair. She had been there 43 years.
Wow.
She was like, baby, I'm about to turn 77. I'm like, when you see me, I want you to wake me because like I loved her like immediately. But she moved quicker than everybody in the building. But I'm like, you retired? She's like, I retired, but she came back because she wanted to have more. She's like, I like my lights to be on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we at right now as
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, as young, capable people with foresight, better than our ancestors. Like, yo, we stand on the heels of some people that did some things that in environments that transcended themselves. They didn't know what the other side looked like, but they had enough heart and enough daring to push forward every day with all uncertainty. Even with them, it was their life immediately a lot of times. With us, it's hardship. And we done got so effeminate as a culture that a lot of time the men don't spearhead the drive. Martin said one thing very important. He said, when the men came out, they stopped jumping on us. Yeah, like if you go on Google.
Look, let's talk about the men.
Hey, we here. We in the building. We definitely in the building. It's just a lot of times we not as active as we should be, but we definitely here.
Don't do it,
I
Jen.
appreciate that dialogue because
Don't do it.
Masculine. Let me stop.
Kiki, were you gonna? It looked like you were gonna say something. I didn't.
So I can't remember, but I definitely want to say that, as a community, I guess sometimes we tend to be afraid to share information because we feel that someone's going to get ahead of us or whatnot. But I can tell you, I can call a Caucasian person. I'm not going to say all African Americans are the same, but I can call certain people and say, hey, I need help with this, or I have a question about this. How do I do this? How did you do this? And they don't mind sharing the information. I think we have to get out of that thought plan of not sharing information because we don't want that person to get ahead. And it could be how to increase my credit, or how to flip houses, how to, renovate houses and rent them out, stuff like that, or how to start a restaurant. People, we should be able to share information so we can help the next one grow our community. And like Chris said, like the Indians, they can own a gas station, and right across the street, their friend or their cousin owns a liquor store, and they share information just like that. And it shows, so we have to do better as a community,
And what I'll say to that, Kiki, and my uncle always told me, Black people want to see you do well. They just don't want to see you do better than them. You know what I mean? So it's almost, and I'm not an entrepreneur. I work in corporate America, and I see it every single day. Every single day. It's we're trying to outdo each other, or at work they call me an overachiever. I don't see me be, I don't, what I'm saying, like, oh, you always trying to outdo us. I mean, if I'm outdoing you, that's a you problem, not a me problem. That has nothing to do with me.
That part. Right there.
Right. Yeah. But I do see it though, even in corporate America. But again, I do want to ask you guys one final question. Well, not a final question, but give us some takeaways. Give the viewers some takeaways. Like, what are like some things you want to leave us to ponder with, whether it's advice, whether it's suggestions. What do you want to leave the viewers with? And Chris, we'll start with you.
Okay. One of the things that I want to say to entrepreneurs is this. Remember that to be an entrepreneur, you have to be a lifelong student. Remember your studentship, and remember to be a steward, like every day, to get up out of the bed with that sense of determination, that sense of creativity, and that sense of purpose. I try to look at like everybody I'm dealing with from the standpoint of not a fiber, but a family, like something going on, something to do. And I think having the right world view, knowing where you're at in time and space, is the world of difference in success and failure. Know the business cycle, protect your credit, and just be smart about your activity. Use the support around you, and don't forget the community. That's the bedrock that's going to keep you around.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris. We appreciate you, brother. Kiki, what you got?
So I want to say trust the process. A lot of people want to give up because they don't see the money coming in at first. Sometimes it's not going to come in as what you see John or Jack or Jane bring in on their 10-year in business. So you got to trust your process, not someone else's. Secondly, utilize the organizations or the business development centers in your city. So like the SBDC, I currently work for the SBDC. So reach out to the SBDC to get help, to get consulted in your business that you may need help with. We have SCORE, we have Richland County Business Development Center. So it's so many different organizations out here, and it's free. So you're paying for it with your tax dollars. So why not utilize it if you need help with your business? And lastly, don't be afraid to ask questions. Ask questions if you need help, but ask the person that you want to that has been in the business that you want to be in. So don't ask someone who hasn't been in your shoes before, because they 9 times out of 10 probably won't know as much. So ask the person that you're trying to get like or be like, basically in that particular business.
Thanks. Be careful who you seek advice from.
Yes, that part.
Shannon, what you got, sis?
So I'm gonna say, just because I'm in a financial arena, is the one of the things we kind of touched on was making sure you protect your credit, protect your ability to fund your business when you're in a crisis, like what we could potentially see coming down the road, right? That's how you sustain your business and make sure that, you can say I've had a business for 20 years or 50 years and not just for 2 years. That you're protecting your credit, you're making sure that you're saving and investing for the business, not for like me to go buy a new car, go buy a new house, but really focusing on how you're shoring up your business and making sure that you can, like I said, survive downtimes. And downtimes can happen even if you're not dealing with a maniac administration. It could just happen from, like we were talking about, the business cycle. It could be times a year where your business may not be as profitable as it is during other times of year. Maybe you sell Christmas trees, so all your business is profitable during the winter months, but you need to survive the whole year. And the way you do that is by protecting your credit, making sure you're investing and saving and having a good financial position for your business. That's important.
Absolutely. And this is probably a this, that, and the third first, but I don't have anything to add. Like, I think that I guess I've said it all. So again, this was a great conversation, a much needed conversation. And I hope that a lot of people got a lot of tidbits from it. So Chris, again, thank you, man.
On this one now. I think we
right?
Yeah, certainly.
No, seriously, right? Because there's so many
layers.
so many other layers and so many other questions we didn't get around to. So definitely, so we're definitely gonna be reaching back out. And again, so
well, Chris a little long-winded, but that's all right.
No, good information.
I guess I get better from a seasoned host.
That's such a sister response, right?
Yeah, right.
Right. No, but on the real though, Chris, we appreciate you, man. Thank you for dropping all the nuggets. Kiki, knowing you for a while, thank you. I'm proud of you for everything that you're doing, and I will continue to support as always. Shannon, you know how we roll, man. Always, like I appreciate everything you do, sis. Thank you so much, and we'll be coming back to you again in the next couple of weeks. And until next time, stay curious and stay informed. We'll be seeing you.
All right.
No question. Everybody have a good night.